Hello YouTube, it's Mr. Magz here, and for some reason, there's always this trend when it comes to Nintendo consoles, where everyone always wants the newest Nintendo console to get more and more third-party games. They're always complaining Nintendo never gets third-party games. Where are all the third-party games? And then whenever, invariably so, whenever Nintendo does get a brand new third-party game ported to their system, people always try to downplay it as if it doesn't actually matter. Which is just ridiculous to me, because do you want more third party games? Or do you want these games to not do very well? Pick one. And the newest example of this is Dark Souls Remastered coming to the Switch this May. Now, this was recently revealed in the Direct Mini that happened last week. And I personally am not super excited to play this game. It's just not really my type of game. But I'm excited to actually see a game like this on the system. Some people aren't that excited for whatever reason. And here is the first of two articles I'm actually going to be discussing with you. The first one titled, "There's only one reason to get Dark Souls Remastered on Switch." Notice that the author didn't say there's only one big reason to get Dark Souls Remastered on Switch. She said only one reason, period. So, yeah, let's just see what she has to say. From Software was listed as one of the supporting third-party developers for the Switch last year, and fans were naturally excited about the possibility of the Dark Souls games coming to the console. Well, it's finally happened. Dark Souls Remastered has been announced for Switch, and it's coming in May. But we're not exactly thrilled with the announcement. First off, who is we? Are you speaking for everyone at Twin Infinite right now? Or are you just saying we as like a general term? Are you just assuming there are other people like you who for some reason arbitrarily don't want this game to do well in the system for whatever reason? It always kind of bugs me when people writing articles like this do that, because in that case you should say we here at Twin Infinite, or some people aren't. Don't say we. That just kind of, I know, that just kind of gives off an image that I'm not really sure if you want to be associated with. Now, here's why she's not super excited. Souls fans were excited about the prospect of the game coming to Switch for one primary reason: the ability to play it on the go. Yes, the portability is a huge factor to take into consideration now that more games are being released across multiple platforms. But when you stop to think about it, is Dark Souls really the kind of game that suits handheld play? Okay. I don't understand this sentiment that, for whatever reason, in some people's minds, there are certain games that are more suitable to playing on the go. Like, look, I get it. There have been certain games and franchises that have been relegated to handhelds throughout the years. Pokemon has always been a handheld franchise. Kirby is generally considered a more handheld-based franchise. There are other certain games that are generally on handhelds, but for whatever reason, because these more often than not more low-budget games are on handheld, it for some reason has this perception of being not as high quality, even though some of my favorite games ever and some of the best games I've ever played have been on my 3DS and DS and other Nintendo handhelds. So I just don't understand this idea that Dark Souls isn't suitable to be played on a handheld. Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild was perfect for the handheld. Mario Odyssey, perfect. Skyrim, perfect. You can take this amazing experience with you anywhere. I just don't understand why this author is trying to say that a game like Dark Souls isn't suitable to play anywhere you want. Do you not want to just be able to have just, a blip of, I think I want to play some Dark Souls right now? And, most of the time, if someone had that thought in their head, they would have to wait until they got home in order to actually play it. But if you had the Dark Souls cartridge with you, you can just pop it in your Switch and start playing right there wherever you are. I don't understand how this game isn't suitable for handheld play, but whatever. Maybe she makes some decent point. Let's continue. While it would be nice to have the game in your back pocket wherever you go, that doesn't feel like something that's absolutely necessary for a game like this. Okay, first off, what game is handheld play absolutely necessary for? It's not absolutely necessary to play Pokemon on a handheld. There there are, programs that are devices that allow you to play games like Pokemon on a Super Nintendo or N64 with the or a GameCube with the Game Boy adapter type thing. There are console level experiences to an extent with XD Gala Darkness and Coliseum. So you don't like it's not necessary to play Pokemon on a handheld, but is it nice to have on a handheld to play wherever you want? Yeah. I It's not necessary to be able to play Mario Odyssey wherever you want, but it's super nice to have. It's super convenient. If you don't want to play it on the TV, if you just want to be lying down on the couch or lying down in bed and just, play a little bit before you go to sleep, that's fine. That's an option for you. These people, for some reason, don't like options, and it just bugs me to no end. Like, I want this person to name one game that they actually do deem necessary to be played on handheld. There isn't one. Yet you're gonna say that Dark Souls isn't necessary to be played on a handheld. I, Unless I'm just reading too much into this, I feel like that wording and that concept is just ridiculous to me. But whatever. Again, maybe I'm jumping the gun. Maybe she makes some decent points further on, but let's continue. For starters, Dark Souls and other games in the Soulsborne series aren't exactly meant to be played in short bursts. On the contrary, From Software's games are more suited for longer sessions where you're able to give them your full concentration. Now I'll keep reading. I'll get to that in a second. Unlike Skyrim or Breath of the Wild, Dark Souls isn't really a game you can quickly clear a level during a 10-minute train ride. Um, this might just be me personally, but I have found the best use of my Switch to be playing it while I'm just listening to a podcast or I'm in like a long like 4 hour car ride or something. I very rarely just picked up my Switch, played Mario Odyssey or played Zelda for just 10-15 minutes and then put it down. Almost always go, pick it up, find something to do, and then have it occupy me for hours on end while I just lounge around the house doing whatever I want or sit in the car for multiple hours on end. So yes, I understand kind of where you're coming from that Dark Souls, isn't a game you can just play for short bursts. And generally handheld games are made to be able to do that where you just, play a level here and there and then put it down. But for the Switch, considering how it is a console and handheld hybrid type thing, it allows you options. You can play it literally however you want. And honestly, the majority of my handhelds, I play it like the way I described. I play it like while I'm listening to long, like 2 hour podcasts or just abiding my time some other way and just play my handheld while I'm doing whatever. So for me personally, it doesn't matter like how exactly the game works. I'll still play it for a decent amount of time regardless. Now there are some times here and there while I'll just, play whatever handheld game, even Mario Odyssey, for like maybe 10 minutes. Like um whenever I say I ride with my parents to town and back for dinner or something. That's like, 10-15 minutes there and back. Yes, that's a short burst, but I play levels and I get into situations where I know for a fact I'm not really gonna ruin anything if I interrupt the gameplay. I okay, so I'll continue. Unless you're a speedrunner or an experienced veteran, of course. But for most players and series newcomers, it's sure as heck to take a lot more than just a short play session to get through the better part of the Undead Burg or even the Undead Asylum tutorial area. Okay, so one thing that this author just completely ignores throughout this entire article is the fact that the Nintendo Switch is also a console. It's actually primarily a console, at least according to Nintendo. So you're gonna tell me that this author is framing this entire article as if she could only possibly play this on a handheld. Yeah, it might very well take you, an hour or two just to beat the tutorial of this game. I've never actually played Dark Souls, so I can't confirm that. But if that is the case, then okay, play it on the TV or play it for that hour on the handheld. You have the option to play it however you want. I and this happens multiple times throughout this article where she just acts like the console part or whatever doesn't actually mean anything. Where you can't, it's not possible that you could just where you could only sit down and play your Switch on the TV. There are gamers that I know personally who have a Switch and have barely, rarely, if ever, actually used the handheld mode. They primarily play on the TV. This would be perfect for them. And you know why they would buy Dark Souls? The reason they would buy Dark Souls is because they want to play it on their Switch. Maybe they like the Joy-Con controls better. Maybe they like the Wii U, the Switch Pro controller better than the 360 or PS3 controller. So essentially, what I'm saying here is that there is way more than just one big reason as to why someone might want to play Dark Souls on the Switch, unlike the article title says. Okay, so let's continue. Let's not forget that this is also a game that demands that you pay attention to it, lest you be struck down by a hollow and end up losing all your souls. Dark Souls isn't a ridiculously difficult game, but it's challenging enough with a steep learning curve that you'll need time to get used to it. Okay. Um so essentially what you're saying here is that in order to get good at this game, you need to grind and actually learn the mechanics of the game. Um, doesn't that entail, doesn't that potentially involve playing short bursts of the game just to get used to one aspect of it? That's how I personally might grind in something like this. Like let's just say I'm grinding in Pokemon. I want all my Pokemon to get to a certain level so I can beat a gym. I get one or two of my Pokemon up to, let's say, level 30, and then I put the game down for a while. And then I pick it up later, 10, 15 minutes, get a Pokemon one or two more up to level 30, put it down. A very similar process could be implemented here. So not only could you do this type of grinding session on the TV, you could also pick it up and, do this type of stuff whenever you want, wherever you want. It's not that hard to understand, in my opinion. I'll continue. The online community is also a huge part of what makes Dark Souls so special. We all know that the player messages can sometimes save your life or lead you to a trollish death, but it sure wouldn't be the same without those online servers. Playing the game on the go without a solid connection will completely remove that feature, and I shudder to think of what the possibilities of having dropped connections if you put the Switch to sleep for a short period of time. Okay, I will admit there are definitely certain games out there, maybe even Dark Souls, that aren't exactly feasible to really play on handhelds. Like that honestly might be one reason why Overwatch isn't coming to the Switch just yet, mainly because you can only that's an online only game, so it'd be kind of difficult to comfortably take the Switch anywhere you go and have a steady connection. So I can kind of understand where she's coming from. However, if you're primarily using it as a console, it that really won't be an issue. At least I don't think it would be. Now, granted, one thing that I do know about Dark Souls is that it's, or at least I think I know, is that you can't really pause in this game. However, with the Switch, it's probably the easiest system ever to just put into sleep mode. You just press the button, it's in sleep mode. Um, so I'm not really sure how that will translate over into Dark Souls. I'm not sure if the game will keep running in the background or if that even makes sense. I don't know, but regardless, they definitely do need to have they do need to change certain things here and there in order to make the game optimized for the Switch. But I'm almost positive that they have this in mind when making it. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But right now, I kind of feel like they wouldn't be taking the time to put it on the Switch if they didn't feel confident that people could get the full experience out of it. Having the game disconnect from the server each time you sleep the Switch will be a major pain in the butt. Yeah, that could potentially be annoying, but there's no guarantee that'll happen. We don't know yet. If the game comes out and that's the case, then sure, I'll eat my words and I might say something about it. But until then, you can't just assume the worst and state that as fact. That's what a lot of these dumb articles seem to do nowadays, and that's just a wrong mindset to have, in my opinion. And let's not forget the fact that you have to save and quit to the main menu each time you want to reconnect in a Souls game. It's the little things like these that make the Switch version of Dark Souls feel less appealing. Yeah, it would be less appealing if the worst case scenario is what we get. There's no guarantee that'll happen. So, okay, I've already kind of gone over that, so I'll just continue. But all of this wouldn't be such a big deal if it wasn't for the other major announcement that Dark Souls Remastered is set to release on the PS4 and Xbox One as well. These superior versions pack significant upgrades such as 60 frames per second and 4K resolution options. Okay, that phrasing right there is kind of flawed, or even kind of like untrue, to be honest. Misleading is what word I'm thinking of, because I don't know this for a fact. The phrasing of different press releases are kinda iffy, but from what I've gathered, again, I could be wrong about this, and if I'm wrong, I'm sorry, but I think the case right now is that only the Xbox One X and the PS4 Pro versions can run it at 60 frames per second, and obviously they can only run it at 4K. The PS4 and Xbox One, I'm not 100% confident, but I am pretty sure that they can only run 30 frames per second. Again, I might be wrong, but regardless, the base PS4 and Xbox One are not going to be running at 4K. So you just saying the PS4 and Xbox One have 4K options is a bit misleading there. You're clearly trying to prove your point, even if the point you're trying to make isn't necessarily true. You're leaving out information that's crucial, saying that, oh, the PS4 and Xbox One are clearly superior, even though there are certain aspects of that you're leaving out that just make this argument just a little less a little it's not exactly the best argument to make, I guess, but whatever. So actually, if I am right in the PS4 and Xbox One base only run at 30 frames per second, then if you have the Switch docked, they'll be essentially the same experience. There might be better lighting or better frame rate here and there on the PS4 and Xbox One just because, yeah, they are stronger than the Switch. But overall, they'll be the same experience. And also, the original Dark Souls, if I'm not mistaken, every Soulsborne game since then has only been 30 frames per second. So really, Switch is just on par with how Soulsborne games are anyway. Like Bloodborne, I know for a fact is only 30 frames per second. So why all of a sudden is it such a great thing that this remaster is 60 when everyone's been playing Soulsborne game for the past 8-9 years at 30? Souls fans are all too familiar with the subpar PC version of the game and the horrendous frame rate drops that trugged through Blighttown on consoles. The boost to the frame rate and resolution on current gen consoles is a major leap forward for Dark Souls, and it just feels silly to settle for a lesser version that only runs at 1080p, 720p in handheld mode, and 30 frames per second on the Switch. Okay, so it kind of sounds like the way you're phrasing this, it kind of sounds like you're trying to imply that the Switch version will clearly have the same frame drops that the PC version had. We don't know that. If it comes out and that's the case, okay, that's not good. But right now, we know for a fact that it's going to be the remaster. More than likely, the first thing From Software wants to fix is Blighttown. They want it to be, the same experience as the rest of the game, unless this is a type of thing like Ubisoft does with Assassin's Creed, where they have legacy glitches, which honestly I always found as a kind of funny concept. They might keep Blighttown as the terrible frame rate it was just because that's how it was originally, but they probably won't do that. So yeah, you can't just say the original game had all these frame drops and then equate that to the Switch being a lesser product, when nothing in here really indicated the Switch being a lesser product, at least the way you're phrasing it. If you had said it released on PS4, Xbox One Pro, and Xbox One X, ran at 60 frames per second 4K, then that definitely would be right. But at least right here, your argument for the Switch being a lesser product isn't exactly fully sound. So I'll continue. Because Dark Souls is generally meant to be enjoyed as a home console experience, all of these factors contribute to painting a less than ideal picture of the Switch port. Okay. That kind of feels like false equivalence, because you say Dark Souls is generally meant to be enjoyed as a home and console experience, even though this is the first time ever, aside of maybe PS Vita Remote Play, I'm not sure if Bloodborne can do that or not. This is the first time ever that Dark Souls has run natively on a handheld. So yeah, it's generally enjoyed to be a home console experience because there was never a handheld option before now. So you can't just assume the worst just because now there's a handheld version, even though there was you can't just say that it's a home console game. Yes, it was before, but now there's a handheld version. So that just kind of seems like a weird leap in logic there. Again, I might be reading it wrong, or I might be just under or overthinking it, whatever, but to me that just sounds like really weird logic to have. Not to mention the fact that the frame rate disparity pretty much confirms that there won't be any cross-platform play for PvP fans. There still could be. I can't think of any other games where that has happened, but we don't know for certain. And honestly, there's only been two games on the Switch that have cross-platform play with Xbox and PC, being Rocket League and Minecraft. So there is a precedent, but it's not every game. Like Doom on the Switch doesn't have cross-platform play. Then again, that's also 30 frames. So yeah, I don't know if that might be an issue, but at the same time, PS4 and PC generally don't have cross-platform play outside of Street Fighter V. I think that might be the only one. And Xbox, they might have. I know Xbox and PlayStation don't have cross-platform play. So again, you're making a point that could be a point, although it's irrelevant right now because we don't have all the information, and also, especially at this point, it's not really relevant to the other console versions either. Whatever. The Switch and the Xbox One have been cross-platform buddies for a year now, but with the difference in frame rate, it would simply be unfair to have that kind of support for players on either platform. And as far as PvP is concerned, it looks like the PS version is still going to be the best place for that, while it's with its larger install base. Okay, so if you only have a Switch, then the Switch PvP is the only option for you. No one is good. Well, I'm not gonna say no one, but very, very, very few people are going to buy a PS4 just to play Dark Souls Remastered. And almost guarantee you, 0 people who have a Switch and are interested in playing Dark Souls are gonna buy a PS4 just to play a game that could also be bought on the Switch. That just doesn't make any sense to me. I can think of a couple other reasons why the game would be great on the Switch, but those reasons will only apply to the most hardcore fans or players who are determined to experience as much of the game as possible. Hang on. I'll finish this paragraph, then I got something to say. For instance, being able to take the game with you would be great if you were working on a new PvP build before you start engaging in online fights. We all know how much effort goes into making solid PvP builds, and that usually involves beating most of the game and then hunting down your ideal weapons and armor before getting to the meta level. Okay, so you all of a sudden have another reason, period. Up here, you say there's only one reason to get Dark Souls on Switch. And then down here, you say I can think of a couple other reasons. Although they only apply to hardcore fans. That's irrelevant. You said there's only one reason, period. Not one big reason. One reason, period, to get it on Switch. And yeah, the whole, grinding for new weapons and grinding your PvP character, that's something you can do in short bursts. So just by having this paragraph alone, you're completely destroying your argument. You're completely just tearing apart the entire subject of this article. And you either should have changed the title, changed your tone of the article as a whole, or just not have this paragraph. Because otherwise, this paragraph just kind of makes you lose a little bit of credibility in my eyes. And also, you said a couple of reasons, yet you only really stated one. You only really stated one here. So I would have kind of liked to hear at least the one other reason you have, because you said a couple of reasons, meaning at least 2. Okay. This last paragraph here, oh, it is so dumb. I'll read the entire thing and then I'll bear into it. Players who just want to work on creating new character builds or play through the game multiple times for lore and exploration purposes could also benefit a lot from having the game in handheld fashion. But the fact of the matter is that not everyone is going to dive that deep into it. While Nintendo has done a great job of providing a complete control scheme with the Joy-Cons, playing it in handheld mode just isn't going to be ideal for a demanding action game like Dark Souls. Actually, I'm going to stop right there. What about playing it in handheld mode doesn't match Dark Souls? What about Dark Souls doesn't compute with handheld play? Playing on the Switch handheld mode, you have all the same buttons. You hold it the same, essentially. Your hands are a bit further apart. But outside of that, what about the Joy-Cons makes Dark Souls hard to play? What about it being a demanding action game makes it weird to play on handheld mode? Just that sentence right there is so flawed. I can understand. Maybe this author just doesn't like handhelds. And even if that were the case, I kind of feel like she should have pointed that out at one point just to add to her credibility, to have a better understanding as to why she's writing this. But no, she all of a sudden just says out of nowhere that a game like Dark Souls just shouldn't be on handhelds. It's not going to be ideal for a demanding action game like this. Zelda is a pretty demanding action game. It's actually a pretty difficult game. Like towards the end of it, you need to have some pretty fast reflexes in order to get past a lot of the stuff. What's different between Zelda and Dark Souls in that aspect? Like I said, I've never played Dark Souls, so maybe it's a little more intricate than that. But still, you can play Zelda just fine in handheld mode. That's how my brother played it almost exclusively, and he beat the game just fine. So yeah, I don't understand exactly what about Dark Souls itself makes it not a good fit to play on Joy Cons in handheld mode. Ugh. I might get back to that more in a second. I'll just finish this paragraph. If the remastered version was exclusive to the Switch, we'd certainly be a lot more excited about it. Okay, time out again. I'm sorry, I I know I keep saying I'm going to read it all, but I have to point this out. If the remastered version was exclusive to the Switch, you'd be more excited about it. So you're saying that just because it's also on PS4, there's no reason to get it on. There's no reason to be excited for it on Switch. That is so. That just doesn't make any sense to me. Like, would I personally be more excited about it if it was only on Switch? Honestly, I wouldn't care. Like, because I know for a fact Nintendo wouldn't isn't isn't having a Bayonetta 2 situation with this game where they're paying for it to be exclusive on the platform. It's a remaster. It's kind of like Skyrim being on the Switch. Like in 2017, Skyrim, like, it was the only Skyrim game released that year, I think. I think Skyrim Remastered was released on PS4, Xbox One in 2016. So Skyrim being on Switch was exciting, sure, but it's or crap. I can't think of, is Super Meat Boy on PS4, Xbox One? I can't remember actually, but if it is, I'm just gonna go right now saying that Super Meat Boy is not on PS4, Xbox One. I could be wrong about that, and if I am wrong, I'm sorry. But Super Meat Boy being on Switch now, that's kind of exciting, but not like overly exciting just because it's only on Switch. It's just nice to have another game. It's nice that Dark Souls is coming, and I honestly don't really care that it's also on PS4, Xbox One. Um, but because because you deem the Switch version inferior to the PS4, Xbox One version, it's automatically less exciting for you. That I hope I made my point kind of clear there, but whatever. But for now, it's difficult to see why new players would choose the Switch port over the greatly superior PS4 Xbox One versions instead. Ultimately, you'd have to really want to play Dark Souls on the go, and it remains to see how well the game even translates to that setup. A couple of things. For now, it's difficult to see why new players would choose the Switch port. Maybe if they only have a Switch. That's a very, very, very solid reason. Or like I said before, maybe if they like the controllers better. Even if you are playing on the go, you can still have it in what they consider tabletop mode and be playing with the Pro controller. And what do you mean again by saying you don't know how well it will translate to the setup? That just doesn't make sense to me. There have been 0 games on the Switch that don't translate well. Every single game you can play on the TV or play on the go however you want, or play anywhere in the house. Like, I just don't feel like this author really understands what exactly it means to be portable. It doesn't just mean you're playing it on road trips or whatnot. That, like, a couple of the trailers in commercials and stuff for the Switch show people just playing it around the house, playing it in tabletop mode, playing it while cooking, which is unrealistic, but still, it's an option to have like that. So yeah, I really don't understand why articles like this are made. It legitimately feels to me that people just want to marginalize third-party games that do come to the Switch, even though people constantly want more third-party games to come to the Switch. So, yeah, like I said before, this isn't the only Dark Souls related article that's super dumb that I'm going to be covering. I'm going to make another video at some point later in the week that discusses another one I found. So yeah, be looking forward to that. And are you looking forward to Dark Souls on the Switch? If you are looking forward to Dark Souls on the Switch, why are you looking forward to it on the Switch? Is it because it's the only system you have, or do you like playing it on the go, or just whatever reason?